Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." At first glance, this quote doesn't seem to have anything to do with outsmarting others. But Nietzsche wasn't interested in surface tricks or clever manipulation. He believed that the greatest power comes not from speaking louder, but from seeing deeper, from knowing yourself so well and understanding others so clearly that your presence alone becomes influence. This is the kind of power that does not need to argue. It does not need to prove anything. It simply is. So what does it mean to outsmart someone without saying a word? To Nietzsche, it begins with mastery over the self, not dominance over others. You cannot truly outsmart anyone else until you first understand your own drives, your own fears, your own illusions. This is the foundation. A person who knows themselves fully is unshakable, not because they are perfect, but because they are grounded. You cannot be manipulated easily when you've already confronted your own shadow. You cannot be provoked when you've already made peace with your rage. You become calm, still and alert, like a panther in the jungle. Quiet, focused, waiting, watching. Nietzsche believed that most people are ruled by instincts they do not understand. He called this the will to power. Not just the desire to control others, but the fundamental drive behind all life, the desire to grow, to expand, to assert one's being. And when this will is unconscious, it leads to chaos. People fight, deceive, and destroy without knowing why. But when it becomes conscious, when you see it, name it, understand it, you rise above the game. You begin to play life at a different level. The first step is to observe, to truly see, not just what people say, but how they say it, their body language, their eyes, their tone. Nietzsche often spoke of the importance of the body in understanding truth. He believed that the body is wiser than the mind. That instinct, feeling, and presence reveal more than logic ever could. When you walk into a room, do you notice who is tense, who is pretending to be confident, who is seeking approval? Most people don't even realize they're giving themselves away. But someone who observes without judgment, quietly, carefully, can see everything. This kind of observation is not about judgment, it's about clarity. And clarity is power. When you understand what motivates someone, what they're afraid of, what they secretly desire, you don't need to argue with them. You don't need to win debates. You already know what they'll say before they say it. You understand the shape of their thinking. And that knowledge is your strength. Nietzsche also emphasized the importance of silence. In a world obsessed with noise, silence is a weapon. Not silence as avoidance, but silence as presence, as attention. When you remain quiet while others speak, you learn more. When you pause before reacting, you gain control. When you speak only when it's necessary, your words carry more weight. Power is often mistaken for volume, but true power is quiet. It is the ability to wait, to listen, to choose your moment. Think of the concept of the Übermensch, the higher man, or the one who transcends. Nietzsche didn't mean someone who dominates others. He meant someone who has transcended the need to dominate. Someone who creates their own values, who stands firm in who they are regardless of what the crowd says. This kind of person is unshakable. They do not chase status. They do not seek applause. They observe, reflect, and act with precision. Their power is internal, and because of that, it radiates outward without effort. This is how you outsmart people without speaking. You become so centered in yourself, so deeply aware of what is happening beneath the surface, that you don't need to speak to influence a room. You don't need to convince. You only need to be. This is what Nietzsche called the path of the creator. Not someone who repeats what others say, but someone who creates new meaning, who lives from within, who is dangerous not because they are aggressive, but because they cannot be controlled. But this path is not easy. It requires what Nietzsche called the discipline of the great. It requires solitude, reflection, and the courage to face the truth about yourself. You must be willing to strip away illusion, to see your own pride, your own fear, your own hunger for approval. Because once you've seen it in yourself, you'll recognize it in everyone else. And that is the key. That is how you see through people, not with judgment, but with understanding. Understanding leads to patience, and patience leads to power. Imagine being in a conversation where someone is trying to provoke you, insult you, or undermine you. Most people react immediately. They defend, they explain, they lash out. But the person who simply listens, nods, and watches, the one who doesn't flinch, controls the room. Because they're not reacting from ego, they're choosing their response from a place of depth. And that is rare. That is unforgettable. Nietzsche once said, "The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly." This means that when you begin to live from this level of awareness, others may not understand you. They may call you cold, arrogant, or strange. But that's okay. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to live from truth. And sometimes truth is lonely, but it is also powerful, liberating, fierce. So what does this look like in daily life? It means you observe instead of react. You listen more than you speak. You ask questions not to trap people, but to understand them. You study human nature the way an artist studies form. You become curious about people's contradictions, their defenses, their masks, and you don't take any of it personally, because you've done the work of seeing your own. You also learn to be still, to let silence speak for you, to let your presence carry your intent. In a world addicted to talking, stillness is power. In a world addicted to being right, humility is genius. Nietzsche believed that most people live in what he called herd morality, a set of values handed down by others, accepted without question. But the powerful individual, the true philosopher, creates their own morality, their own code. They don't ask, "What should I do?" They ask, "What is true for me?" And they live that truth, not loudly but consistently. That consistency is what makes them impossible to manipulate. You cannot guilt a person who is not controlled by guilt. You cannot shame someone who has made peace with their flaws. You cannot seduce someone who is not hungry for validation. This is how you win without fighting, how you outsmart without arguing. And so to begin walking this path, you must turn inward, study yourself, see what drives you, face your own need for approval, for dominance, for safety. And then gently begin to let it go. Step by step, truth by truth. This is the real meaning of strength, not the power to defeat others, but the power to master yourself. In the next part, we'll go deeper into specific ways Nietzsche's ideas can be applied to everyday situations. How to navigate power dynamics, how to disarm manipulation, and how to embody the kind of presence that changes everything without needing to say a word. Until then, stay grounded, stay alert, and remember, true power does not announce itself, it simply is. In our last conversation, we explored how Nietzsche believed that true power comes not from domination, but from understanding, especially the understanding of oneself. Now we take the next step, We move from the internal world to the external one, from the foundation of inner clarity to its application in daily life. How can you navigate a world full of manipulation, ego, and noise without ever raising your voice? The answer lies in presence, in stillness, in observation. Most people operate on autopilot. They say things without thinking. They react from habit. They are driven by unconscious forces, what Nietzsche called the will to power. But you are not here to be like most people. You are here to be conscious, to see clearly. And when you do, the world becomes your classroom. Let's begin with conversation. When you speak to someone, what do you notice? Their words, yes, but also their tone, their timing, their hesitation, their eyes. Are they speaking from confidence or from fear? Are they trying to impress you or connect with you? Most people don't ask these questions, but you must. Because beneath every word is a need. And the one who sees the need, not the statement, is the one who holds the real power. Let's say someone criticizes you. They say something designed to hurt, to throw you off balance. A common reaction is to defend, to argue. But Nietzsche would urge you to look deeper. Why are they attacking? Are they threatened? Are they insecure? Are they projecting something from their own life onto you? If you can see this, you don't need to react. You can simply notice. Breathe and stay centered. That calmness will disarm them more than any clever comeback ever could. Now consider group dynamics. In a room full of people, who has the real influence? Often it's not the loudest. It's the one who listens the most, who makes others feel seen, who watches carefully and speaks only when it matters. Nietzsche admired those who rise above the herd, not by shouting over it, but by understanding it. He believed in the value of solitude, of stepping back, of observing from the outside. And in social situations, this becomes a superpower. Watch how people position themselves, who seeks validation, who dominates the conversation, who mirrors others to be liked. These behaviors reveal everything about a person's insecurities, and the one who observes without judgment learns to navigate any social setting, not through manipulation but through insight. Another key principle is the art of timing. Nietzsche believed that wisdom is not just knowing what to say, but when to say it. There is strength in restraint, in waiting, in allowing others to reveal themselves before you make a move. This applies in conversations, negotiations, even in personal relationships. When you act from patience instead of impulse, you begin to shape outcomes without force. This doesn't mean you're passive. It means you are deliberate. You wait not because you're unsure, but because you are in control. And this is what people feel, even if they can't explain it. They sense your steadiness, your clarity, and it commands respect. Nietzsche also warned us about the dangers of resentment. He believed that those who feel powerless often become bitter. They seek to bring others down instead of rising up themselves. This is a trap, and it is very common. But when you do the inner work, you rise above this. You stop seeing life as a competition. You stop needing others to fail in order to succeed. Instead, you become focused, creative, centered in your own journey. This kind of inner security is rare, and because it's rare, it's powerful. People are drawn to it. They don't always know why, but they feel it. They feel your self-possession, your quiet confidence. And in a world filled with performance, your authenticity becomes magnetic. Let's look at how this plays out when you're faced with manipulation. Manipulators rely on emotional triggers. They want you to feel guilty, ashamed, flustered. But when you've done the work of self-inquiry, when you know your own weak points and accept them, they lose their leverage. You cannot be guilted when you understand your boundaries. You cannot be shamed when you've accepted your flaws. You cannot be baited when you've tamed your ego. Imagine someone tries to guilt you into saying yes to something you don't want to do. Instead of reacting or explaining, you pause. You feel the impulse to defend yourself. You breathe, and you say calmly, "No, that doesn't work for me." No excuse, no apology, just clarity. This is how boundaries are set without conflict, without argument, with nothing but presence. This is the Nietzschean ideal: to rise above, to become the Übermensch, not by power over others, but by full realization of the self. This is the path of silent power, the path of influence without force, the path of wisdom in action. In the final part, we will explore the practical tools and techniques that bring all of this together. How to develop your own presence, how to practice observation, and how to move through the world with the kind of quiet mastery that Nietzsche believed was the mark of the truly powerful. Until then, remember, stillness is not weakness, it is control. And silence, when grounded in awareness, is the loudest voice in the room. Now that we've walked through the philosophy behind silent power and the mindset that Nietzsche admired, it's time to ground these ideas in practice. This is where theory becomes transformation. If you want to outsmart anyone without saying a word, it's not about clever tricks or deception. It's about cultivating presence, awareness, and inner strength so deeply that your very way of being speaks louder than anything you could say. Let's begin with the first tool: observation. To observe well is to gather power quietly. You start by slowing down. Walk into a room and instead of trying to be noticed, notice others. Watch body language. Where are people facing? Who's speaking the most? Who avoids eye contact? Who fidgets when silence falls? These tiny signals speak volumes about confidence, insecurity, intention, and desire. The one who listens more than they speak understands more than anyone else. Practice this without judgment. Observation is not about labeling others as good or bad. It's about tuning into behavior and learning from it. You will begin to see patterns. In social settings, in work meetings, in one-on-one conversations, people reveal themselves constantly. The more you watch, the more you understand. And once you understand, you begin to anticipate. That anticipation is the root of strategic thinking. The second tool is restraint. Nietzsche emphasized self-mastery as a higher form of intelligence. When you practice restraint, you learn to stop reacting out of impulse. Instead, you respond from awareness. Let's say someone interrupts you or dismisses your point. The reactive mind wants to fire back, to correct them. But the restrained mind asks, what do I gain by reacting? What if I simply wait? Or stay silent, or even smile? This isn't weakness, it's control. And it often creates more impact than any rebuttal. In moments of conflict, the one who remains calm becomes the anchor. Others either rise to meet that calm, or they unravel. Either way, your silence becomes louder than any argument. People remember how you make them feel. And when you embody composed energy, you disarm tension and invite respect. The third tool is detachment. Nietzsche believed that a powerful individual must not be ruled by the opinions of others. This doesn't mean becoming cold or uncaring. It means you stop seeking validation. You stop trying to impress. You live and act according to your values, not other people's approval. When you are detached from needing to be liked, your presence shifts. You become more honest, more grounded. People sense they can trust you because you're not performing. Detachment also frees you from taking things personally. Criticism no longer destabilizes you. Praise no longer intoxicates you. You learn to walk in your truth steadily, regardless of external noise. This internal stability is rare, and because it's rare, it becomes powerful. In a world obsessed with image, your authenticity becomes influence. The fourth tool is intentional silence. Most people are uncomfortable with silence. They fill it with nervous chatter, with justifications, with over-explaining. But when you embrace silence, you project confidence. When you pause before speaking, people lean in. When you listen fully before responding, your words carry more weight. Practice being the one who is comfortable with pauses. Let others rush to fill them. You will see how silence reveals truth. There's also power in nonverbal cues. How you sit, how you make eye contact, how you nod, breathe, and orient your body. All of these subtle actions communicate presence. Confidence isn't always a booming voice. Sometimes it's the steady gaze of someone who doesn't need to prove anything. This is where body language becomes an extension of your inner clarity. Posture, stillness, and calmness say, "I am here. I am aware. I am not threatened." Now let's talk about energy again. When you've done the work, when you've faced your fears, examined your ego, and cultivated self-awareness, you carry a different kind of energy into every room. It's not aggressive, it's not dominant, it's magnetic. Why? Because it is real. It's not based on performance, it's based on presence. And people are drawn to presence because it's so rare. Nietzsche believed in the concept of becoming who you truly are, not who society tells you to be. That path requires solitude, reflection, and courage. It requires you to break free from the herd. And when you do, you begin to see things others don't. You start to recognize manipulation, projection, and pretense in others, not with judgment, but with clarity. This clarity allows you to move through situations with grace. Here's a practical example. You're in a meeting. Everyone's talking, ideas are flying, someone tries to dominate the conversation. Instead of competing for attention, you listen, you take mental notes. You ask yourself, what is the deeper need behind their words? Are they seeking control, recognition, validation? When it's your turn to speak, you don't rush. You speak slowly, calmly, with confidence. You say less, but you say it well. And in that moment, you shift the room, not by force, but by grounded energy. This is not theory. This is practice, and it works. Another tool, focus. The powerful individual knows where their attention goes. They are not distracted by gossip, drama, or social games. They protect their focus because they understand it's their most valuable asset. When you are focused, truly focused, you see clearly. And when you see clearly, you act wisely. Train yourself to observe your own mind. Where does your attention go when you feel insecure? Where does it go when you're uncomfortable? Can you bring it back? Again and again, this is the discipline, returning to center, returning to self. Over time, this becomes your natural state, calm, attentive, grounded. Let's now bring all of these tools together into one principle. Presence is power. Presence is not about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself so fully that control becomes unnecessary. When you're present, you listen without judgment. You act without fear. You express without seeking approval. And in doing so, you radiate strength, The world feels your presence before you say a word. Nietzsche saw life as a stage where most people act out roles. The silent, aware individual steps off that stage. They stop performing, they stop competing, they start living from a deeper truth. This is the real power, not over others, but over the illusions within yourself. So now we come to the final practice. Integration. Philosophy is not just for thinking, it is for living. So how do you begin to live this truth? Start with daily reflection. At the end of each day, ask, where did I react from fear? Where did I stay grounded? What did I learn about others, about myself? Keep a journal, not to impress anyone, but to sharpen your awareness. Practice deliberate silence. Let a conversation breathe. Don't rush to reply. Notice what happens. Breathe, observe, wait. You will see that the world rushes, but you don't have to. Spend time alone. Nietzsche believed solitude was essential for clarity. It is in solitude that you hear your own voice, that you face your shadows, that you build the strength to walk alone if needed. And when you can walk alone, you never fear being misunderstood again. Finally, return to your values. What do you stand for? What kind of person are you becoming? Let these questions shape your choices. Let them guide your speech, your silence, your actions, because the one who lives from inner truth cannot be manipulated by outer noise. And so we end where we began, with the silent, observing, powerful individual. The one who outsmarts not by speaking louder, but by seeing clearer. The one who leads not by controlling, but by understanding. The one who wins not through ego, but through awareness. This is the path Nietzsche pointed to, and it is open to you now. You do not need approval. You do not need to be loud. You only need to be present, to be still, and to see. Remember, in a world that shouts, silence becomes a revolution. And when you are rooted in your truth, you don't need to say a word to be heard.